Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Everyman's Arsenal, a podcast where we get into your favorite influencers, tactical gear companies, and the folks behind that. And today we have an interesting one for you. We have Daniel from HRT. Let's get into it. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
good to have you on.
Good to be here.
We have we have seen a lot of HRT content on the Thin Line Defense channel, but you, Daniel, are kind of a new face to HRT. So can you get into kind of your background a little bit and how you came to be at HRT?
Sure. So, round end of 2020-ish, I was working for, was ending my time with the Marine Corps, and I was looking at, I was working for an engineering firm just on the side. Um, and it was a lot of like computer work, desk work, staring at a screen, clicking and dragging, mechanical design for HVAC stuff. And I was just dying. It's not where my passion is. It's not where my heart is. I like working with people. I like getting them what they need, assisting them with finding what equipment they might need or gear. And then HRT popped up on Instagram as hiring. And I was like, no way they'd ever consider me for that. I'm just a regular dude. But they're in Columbus, and I grew up in the Columbus area. So I just sent off like email, resume, and everything. And it turned into a couple interviews, a couple phone calls, and that was during like the COVID stuff had started. So it was a lot of like some virtual calls because people were sick, and showed up for my first in-person interview and immediately called the owner of the company by the wrong name because I had only met him over the phone. But they didn't seem to mind, so I got the job as just customer service to start. Wasn't anything fancy. Um, and then that was January of 21, and the company just continued to grow, and so we ended up moving into our own building, our own space, and then I moved into doing the retail side of HRT. So if you go to a storefront and they've got HRT equipment in that store, they've probably talked to me, and we've either they came to us or we went to them to get that relationship. So for the last like 2 years, that's what I've done mainly with HRT is the sales side, and then I do a little bit of assistance in the marketing world. So some of our photo shoots and videos, and hang out with you guys just the day as well.
Yeah, yeah, that was a blast. I mean, we've seen you at, it's kind of interesting for our viewers or those listening in. Like Walsh and I have met you multiple times, but it's not really when we talk about HRT in the past, we've mentioned Gene, we've mentioned Chris, we've had Chris on our live chat before.
Right.
Um, so it was for me. I have a special interest in just learning about the people that are in this company and kind of what makes the company tick. So having an opportunity to have you on and maybe Aaron in the future and hopefully we could drag Gene onto one of these in the future as well. That sounds fun to me because I love learning about people and learning about their background. So hearing that you grew up around the Columbus area, I spent some time in Ohio myself at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and my cousins went to school at Ohio State, which is what city is that? I almost said Dayton, but that's where Wright-Pat is.
OSU's in Columbus as well.
Columbus. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I've been there then because I went to the stadium and well they
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the name of the stadium, but I know they
The
just
shoe.
expanded it to fit the shoe because it used to be like a horseshoe shape, right?
Yep.
Something like that.
Yep.
So sorry, off topic, but so
No, you're
you
good.
you had mentioned serving in the Marine Corps. How many years did you serve in the Marine Corps?
So you and I probably may have crossed paths because I worked out of Wright Pat. So I did nothing fancy, nothing special. I was in the reserve the entire time. So chalk that into my just inexperience. I didn't know what I wanted at the time, and so I took what opportunity was in front of me. There's some things I do different in that, but I was actually at Wright Pat with Charlie Company out of Marine Corps 4th Law Enforcement Battalion. So
Oh, okay.
tucked in the corner, hidden off to the side, is where we like to hang out, away from anyone who might look like Air Force.
Yeah. So
Um,
the law enforcement did you say law enforcement department with the Marine Corps?
Yeah, law enforcement battalion. So
Battalion. Okay.
my MOS was 5811 military police, but when you're in the reserve side, you don't get a badge. You're not sworn in. So we focused. Yeah. So people are like, oh, so you pulled people over? I literally never pulled anyone over. Never. I didn't check an ID ever. It was great. We played glorified infantry. We got to work out of gun trucks and
Yeah, you weren't at the
play with that
gate.
kind of equipment.
You weren't at the gate doing some of these, and then every so often you
Never.
pop a salute.
I did get
Yeah.
salutes a lot going through that gate. I don't know why, but the Air Force gate people would salute us all the time.
Yeah, there was. They probably just didn't understand the rank. A funny
Probably
story.
not.
I can't remember if I've talked about this on our podcast or our live chat before, but we had this DOJ task force in Iraq, and this I I wasn't part of it at the time. I heard about it from one of the guys that was after fact, but it was headed up by a Marine captain, and they were kind of in this bullpen area and gets a call, and so all of a sudden he starts yelling on the phone, "Who the f do you think you're talking to?" This Marine captain's yelling, and everyone in the task force is looking like, "What is going on?" And then all of a sudden, man, yes sir, yes sir, sorry sir. I mean, going through all the apologies, hangs up the phone, and he looks at everyone staring at him, and he says, "Make sure if you start chewing out a captain, you find out what branch of service they're in first." It was a Navy. It was a Navy captain, which is an '06, compared to a Marine captain, which is an '03. Um, yeah, so I tell you, man. I mean, especially you throw the Navy in the mix, and the Air Force has no idea
Right.
what to do.
I
Um,
got a lot of. So I actually got treated for a knee injury on right pat, and the hospital staff would look at my ID or my like name, and I was Lance Corporal, so it was LCPL, and they thought that that was like Lieutenant Commander or something, and so they were like, "Yes, sir," "No, sir," all this stuff, and eventually one of them was like, "Hey, what like what rank are you actually?" I was like, "I'm an E3," and they're like, "Oh, okay, goodness, like we've been thinking you're some kind of officer. We're doing all these X-rays on." I was like, "Nope, absolutely not. You
no,
outrank me actually."
yeah, no special needs or anything over here.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the military in general is just kind of an interesting one. One of my favorite experiences when I was like a E1 or E2 at my training base. There was this E9, a chief master sergeant, who just looked like he was angry at everybody, and he was walking into the BX, the store on base for those that are unfamiliar with it. Walking into the BX, and there's these two lieutenants that are walking out. Now in the military, it doesn't matter what rank you are enlisted versus what you're supposed to initiate the salute to the officers. And this guy just you could just tell like he wasn't saluting anybody. This chief was not saluting anybody. And finally he gets probably within 10 feet of these lieutenants, and the lieutenants initiate the salute to the chief, and he just basically barks at them like, "Don't effing salute me," and they put their hands down really quick, and he marches off. You see a lot of crazy stuff in the military, and
Mm-hmm.
I totally get that. So spent time in the Marine Corps, got out, started working at this engineering firm or doing engineering stuff, and then tagged on with HRT at the height of COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
have you transitioned then from starting off where you were in HRT to kind of turning into like the face of the company now?
Right. Dumb luck. So if we go way back, pre Marine Corps, I worked for a company called Gander Mountain, and I think they might have been out in your area. So I was on the gun counter there for 3 years. Great experience. Was really like showed me something that I like doing, which was working with people in the like firearm industry, but we were getting them what they needed. I did a lot of like repair work and maintenance work and zeroing, things like that. And we had a really great crew that was always super helpful for our customers. I don't think we ever had a customer that left and was like, "Wow, I just got screwed over by Gander Mountain's sales team on something." And so when I started working at HRT, I was doing customer service, and I took the same mindset. And HRT already prides itself on its customer service, so there wasn't like, "Oh, you're doing better or you're doing worse." Like HRT had high expectations for customer service, and that previous experience with Gander Mountain was like right in line with what I wanted to do. So that rolled over pretty nicely. And then we attend a lot of shows. So like I'll go to the law enforcement shows across usually the eastern side of the U.S. and then SHOT Show, things like that. So in doing that, I just made a lot of connections with different companies and relationships as well. And I think that kind of pushed me into a little bit more of a well-known area, just being around different people in the industry and being around different companies. And then being a little bit younger, so Chris doesn't want to do this as much, so I get thrown into that a little bit too.
Yeah, that I mean that liaison skill is something not a lot of people have. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that I found early on in my law enforcement career. My previous agency, I was the only person that was working in my agency on the Fed side in Washington State. I covered Washington and Alaska, so there was this need to rely on others to help me do my job. So being very personable and being able to talk to people and figuring out what I need and what I can provide for them has been it was a godsend, like having those skills. And then
Mm-hmm.
those communication skills I think transfer very effectively or efficiently over to interacting with people for interviewing or for pretty much anything else.
Right.
um, and it's hard. I would say that it's hard to teach those skills. It's hard to learn those skills. So that's cool to see what these skills that you developed early on, even before the Marine Corps, kind of transfer over and transition through these stages of your life to where you are now.
Right.
Um, so do you get involved at all with any of the design side of the house, or is it strictly like the marketing side is more of your focus?
So as a positive and a negative, the size of HRT means that like the core employees mean that we pretty much all covered various aspects of the company. So while my focus for the last 2 years was retail sales and a little bit of like the law enforcement sales, at the same time, for example, we came out with the ARC belt. I was pretty involved in the ARC belt's design process, and that wasn't like I designed the belt, absolutely not. But usually there's 6 or 7 of us that sit down and really start working on the intricacies of a new product or what the goal is. And sometimes there may be just like, hey, you're responsible for one product and build your team and work on this idea. And other times it's all
Mm.
hands on deck. We're gonna design this belt.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I mean, I've we've seen tons of battle belts on the channel. One of the things that I've come to enjoy, or enjoy about that, is seeing all these different belts, really figuring out what it is that I like in a belt and what it is that I don't like in a belt. Um, and Man, I was talking to, I think it was Aaron at this training we just recently, Aaron from HRT, and telling him like I really like the arc belt, but it was kind of a pain to get some of the tigers through, whatever however you pronounce it. And he was like, "Oh, told me this trick about using a zip tie," and I was telling Walsh about it. Walsh was like, "That bastard never told me that trick." So, but I love that the idea of being able to weave, kind of like a Molly style, weave it through the belt and just has such a strong lockup. So that's a great belt. I really love that belt. And where did the idea to have the curved design of that belt come from? Because that I think really helps with the comfort side of it.
It definitely does. So one of our guys he literally just loves designing stuff all over the place. Um, had an idea years ago to do that type of where the tail goes on underneath the other side, so you get
Oh,
that
yeah.
full support. And I think while kind of reviewing that and then looking at like the shape of cummerbunds and the shape of existing belts and things like that, the idea of just contouring it in that smile shape came about. And so we tried it, and it made the design process a little difficult because if you look at an arc belt, and people that may not be familiar, the arc belt is a Tegris core with a sleeve that is Cordura material that goes over it, and it doesn't cover the whole belt. And the reason it can't cover the whole belt is because it has that arc shape to it. So if it didn't have that curvature, we could just put a whole length sleeve on it.
Hmm.
But it has to be two separate ones because of that curve. Otherwise, the material bunches and it looks pretty unprofessional. So that was the downside, but the upside was you got this curved section that sat better on the hips. And so if you watch guys when they're they're moving something, or let's say like you're working out in your kit and you notice like the belt moves away from and shifts and such on the body, and that helps to eliminate some of that movement because of the way that it's able to rest in a different manner.
Yeah, and well, I like the belt sleeves that they have now for the back because
Mm-hmm.
what you're explaining, how you're explaining it makes sense now because they're smaller individual sleeves, and I'm assuming that that prevents that bunching up of the material if you were to cover your whole belt with
Right.
those. Okay.
I think we can get, and we're talking about doing some different lengths of those and such, but I think you can get like 7 slots before it'll start to pull one end from the other and get
Okay.
uneven. But it is why we couldn't do a full length sleeve, because you would end up minimal adjustment and then you wouldn't be able to have it look clean and professional.
Yeah, but it doesn't take away from the capability of being able to just molly
Right,
through the Tegris itself. So I've come to enjoy it. I was telling I've heard some maybe I won't get into it, but some secret sauce about what you guys might be cooking up next that I'm very very excited about on the belt side of the house. So
there are some
when you
secret sauces.
yeah so so when you guys are designing gear or for you when you're looking at the marketing aspect of it, what would you say would be your focus? And it might change between designing and marketing, but what is it that your goal is as you're pushing forward on a certain, let's say, design project versus a marketing project?
Mm-hmm. So, as marketing can be, which I'm by no means a marketing professional at all. I'm relatively new in the marketing world for HRT stuff. Um, Marketing is more about getting attention or getting interaction and engagement, whereas designing a product, you have to actually get the product in somebody's hands before they can care. So you have to create that prototype. You have to test that prototype, see if it functions and if it works and it does what it says it's going to do, and then you have to find a way to make it, which is the other part, because sometimes you can design the product and trial it, and then it goes time to make it and everyone's like, yeah, we actually can't make that. um, and so, but for example, I had a secret sauce attempt design, and Jim and I were talking about it, and he goes, great, but how are you supposed to attach these pouches? And I was like, well, you just molly them on like that. And he's like, yeah, but you have sewing on top of the molly. And I was like, oh, right, that's not going to work. So, which is oversight on my end. But when it comes to the design stuff, I think my biggest focus is it has to actually be adaptable, which is one of the cores of HRT, is that our products are all adaptable and they're modular. So if you go get a Maximus placard and you want to use it for, let's say you're a breacher and you want to set it up for a breacher, but then tomorrow you have to use it just for regular patrol work, are you able to do that, or did you spend $120 to get something that can only be used in one very specific application? And so when it comes to our products, that's a big thing that we want to ensure, that you have multiple uses for the product. It's not just one similar item.
Right.
It solves a problem, gives you a solution, and doesn't make your equipment life more complicated by giving you, I mean, the belt's difficult to set up sometimes, but it doesn't take away your like life value to have to put the belt together for 15, 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, I will say when I had the belt right before we were going out to this Jawless Hog training that we just did, this night vision one,
Mm-hmm.
and Chris had it mailed to Walsh's house because I was flying into Nebraska going to pick it up, and Walsh was like, "No problem, man. You just set this up as you're driving." And so no, you like I needed pliers, and I was like, "There's no, nope. I'm going to save this till we get to the hotel, and I can actually watch a video on this."
Right.
So, but
I can
again,
do it in
getting
about
back
5 minutes
into
now.
what's that?
I can do one in about 5 minutes now.
Yeah, and so
I've done
that
so
was my
many.
thing is once once I got the first pouch in, then it was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Or when I put the sleeves on initially, I had them backwards. So
Oh, right.
when I held it in front of me, this is something Walsh probably did not appreciate because um, I like stretched it out, and he's driving, so here's this arc belt like covering his face for a second, like
Right.
son of a gun, I have it upside down. So taking the sleeves back off, put it back on the right side up. because in the video, did you do the video that talked about setting up the belt?
I didn't know.
Okay. But in the video that
I know who
it's
did. If you want to roast him,
On HRT's website, there was a video, or excuse me, YouTube channel, and
hmm
the one thing was, you know, as long as it's, I forgot what they said, but if it's smiling at you, then you have it set up the right way or something like that.
right?
And I was like, oh, I did it again, like arc belt in front of Walsh's face. Yep, smiling. Okay, we could work with this now. So I was able to get the sleeves on and locked into place, and but not knowing then at that point, obviously it's difficult setting up a belt in a car ride, but not knowing exactly like, okay, where am I going to put my pouches? Where am I going to put my holster? Had to figure that part out when we got to the hotel.
hmm
um, I like that idea of modularity that you just talked about, though, and so the Maximus placard seems like, I look at it and I don't think modularity, because the pouch, like all of it is just sewn in there. You're not able to move it all around like you are with the modulus placard.
hmm
And but as I'm thinking about it, like, yeah, it wouldn't be too difficult to reset it up for something. If I wanted to take my AR-15 elastic placard, or insert out and put an AR-10 elastic insert in, that's not super difficult. Take
Right.
out, take out the pistol mag pouches and put in a multi-tool and a flashlight. Super easy to do.
hmm
So it's interesting because it's not something that I would think of as a modular placard, but as we were talking about it just now, I thought, yeah, that would be something that I can easily transition around to something else that I need. But the modulus placard seems like that times 10. You can really set that up however you want.
So I'm just working at a lot of the shows that I'll
Mm-hmm.
go to. We'll talk to, let's say, a SWAT team, and they go, "Hey, we need." One of my favorites was, "We need our grenadiers to have new placards. Do you guys have an option?" And if you were to walk by our booth and look at all of our options, you go, "They have nothing for a grenadier. They just don't." We have our utility pouch now. We're working on some other things. So like maybe you could say now, yes, we do, but you just wouldn't think about it. And I looked over at the booth and I was like, "Yeah, I got that. I can do 9 up front." And the guy goes, "9 up front? How are you putting 9 up front? The only thing you have up there is 3 AR mags." Well, if you pull the AR mags out and you put the submachine gun insert in, now you got 5. The elastic inserts for a submachine gun are roughly the same size as a 40 millimeter.
Hmm.
The little elastic pouches on the inside of your general purpose pouch that's attached to the front will hold 2 more. So now you've got 9 with your additional. You can still put your med kit in the front, put a
Yeah.
zipper on top, and now they're all retained. So he goes, "Well, that's a really good idea." And I was like, "Then we can do another 10 on the back if we put more back panels on it." And he's like, "I guess that's all we need." So that was what they did for their team. So the possibilities are pretty extensive. Even the AR insert, I've seen guys put a taser in one side, radio in the other, and a rifle mag in the other, because they're like, "I only
Mm.
need one rifle mag, and I need
Right.
my radio, and I need my taser, and this way I don't have to have a belt."
Oh, I like
Perfect.
that.
And then, like you said, the modulus has more because you can pull those off, and you can just have
Right.
your back section. We've done Dudes have gone hunting with like the Maximus or the modulus, and they'll pack it with their calls, phone, some some tools they would need if they get a deer or pheasant or whatever it is, um, or a shotgun placard full of shot shells instead of for a breacher or
Hmm.
someone in a law enforcement department. A dude's going pheasant hunting can take 21 rounds without having to carry anything loose in his pockets. So it goes beyond just the tactical side. There's a whole lot of extra things that our stuff can be used for. We've seen search and rescue out of the Maximus placard, and dudes are putting just a big zipper pouch on top, taking the RMAG section out, and it's full of
Hmm.
medical equipment, some radios, search and rescue tools they might need, all over the
Yeah.
place.
Well, I love that you were able to, in that scenario with the SWAT team, like able to know immediately, know your gear good enough that you could say, yeah, this is what we could do for you. And this is how
Mm-hmm.
we can set you up. Um, so with that, like, has there been times where agencies or teams have come to you guys with a challenging design, like any of the stuff that we see on market right now? Did that come out of a need that some teams? I don't know what you could talk about, but if you can,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to kind of delve into challenges that HRT has had in developing and designing gear and how you overcame those challenges.
Let's see. I think I had so the 40 millimeters was one that we had some assistance with. I worked with a couple departments on the belt side just because they've got, um, and unfortunately with plates and medical gear too. But a lot of times with departments, and you may have run into this as well in your experience, the department policy says you have to have a Safari Land leather belt. There's nothing wrong with a Safari Land leather basket weave belt, but it doesn't support the weight as much as an arc belt does, and it weighs like twice as much as a Bear belt does.
Yeah.
So we've had to work some things for them, and those belt sleeves, the extra pieces you were talking about, the two slots, that's one
Hmm.
of those solutions that has come into existence because of departments going, we'd carry this belt, but you have to cover the Tegris from end to end. We can't have any exposed because chief says it's unprofessional, so we have to cover it up.
Okay.
Or I've had a, hey, that tore up my seat because I was wearing the exposed Tegra section was up against my seat for 12 hours a day. So covering it with things like that protects that. When we came out with the Tegris inner belt for the arc, we intentionally overlapped the loop section of the Velcro over the
Hmm.
top so that if you were to lean over, your stomach wouldn't dig into bare Tegris because that would never be comfortable. That protects both your pants from getting cut up, but it also prevents your stomach from being cut up if you lean over or you're crunched over.
Yeah.
We created this is before my time, but the air pass backer for our
Oh.
placards. So if you're running a harness, you can obviously take a cheap Amazon section of loop field and attach it just to cover it up. But the air pass provides you some breathability for the user and makes it more comfortable for them. And then we've had some people that have bought it and they're like, hey, this tore up my shirt. Yeah, it's going to do that. You should probably get one of these. Make sure that doesn't happen. So a couple of things like that.
And then
One of
what
the
about? Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
What about on the marketing side? Like, are there uh, challenges that you've seen on the marketing side? I don't know, people from overseas, or do you guys sell to folks that are overseas that want your gear as well? You stay
Yeah, we
within
have
the
a
states.
couple. We have a couple vendors that are outside of the U.S. There's Estonia, the UK, France, um, South Korea,
Oh, that's cool.
Philippines. Yeah, we have a pretty wide variety of dealers outside of the U.S.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it helps because like most of our products are not ballistic rated; they're not ITAR controlled because it's just material. So
Right.
we can ship those wherever. Then it's not an issue. Um, I did have I was thinking about sharing this for the marketing challenge. Coming up with a name for products is surprisingly difficult. When we come out with a new product, we got to name it, and there's ideas all over the place, and some of them are great, and some of them are like, what were you thinking when you came up with that? At one point, we offered to let people name the arc belt, and the responses we got back were it kind of reminded us of like the High Point, the Yeet Cannon
Oh yeah.
line, and we're kind of like, yeah, these names we can't do. Like, if it was, if we were High Point, then maybe we could get away with it. But we've got to sell this to departments and things. The names have to be
Right.
professional still. Um, and the Arc Belt was one of them where there was a bunch of different names, and we had a bunch of meetings, and people were getting heated about what name they thought was best and what would get attention and what would bring the wrong attention. And eventually, I looked at I looked at Gene and I was like, hey, all of our stuff is named for what it does. Like the rack is the releasable adaptive carrier. It's super simple. So I was like, well, what about the arc, the adaptable rigid core? And he goes, done. So it was like perfect. So when he sends it out in the group message, like, hey everybody, what do you think about arc? And everybody goes, that's great, let's do it. And I'm like, wow, that could have saved hours of debating for names. Um, so sometimes that the name actually takes longer than the product to design, which is an interesting um, clue into the design world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we see that somewhat in the YouTube side as well. When we're, at least for myself, when I'm coming up with titles for a video or working on the thumbnail, it's a lot
Hmm.
of back and forth with Walsh. Like, okay, I like that, but add a drop shadow. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. He's like, oh, send it to me, I'll do it for you. Or no, I don't like how to flip these words around, or maybe get rid of this part of it. So
Hmm.
I totally get that. Where, and generally speaking, the editing side of a video is 20 times longer than the recording side of the video. Like Walsh, we're going to be doing a video on our Jawless Hog tactical training, um, and we did some talking portions like, hey, first day, this is what we're hoping to get out of this class. Okay, end of the first day, this is what we learned. Um, and he sent me a message like, dude, I have so much work to do. There's like 40 minutes of us talking, and I have to chop it up into, try to get this into a 20-minute video, 20 minutes or less. I have a lot of work to do. Like, I can't be bothered for the next week. So it's, we definitely see, I think a lot of people don't, maybe people understand that, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of work that's happening that people don't see.
Right.
My dad had this coffee cup, a Far Side coffee cup growing up, and it was ducks, a mama duck and her little kids, and it said, "Make it look easy, but underneath paddle like hell." And that's what it is. You see ducks on the water, and they just seem so graceful and calm, but they're just kicking their little feet to try to
Right.
move where they need to move.
Yep.
So
And it takes some time to turn a company of, um, and a company of HRT size takes a while to get turned to focus on something as a priority too. And because there's so many things happening, we can't, for example, we can't stop manufacturing because we want to design something. So we can't go
mm,
have sewing stop so we can design one product. We got to figure out how to, find that time, fit it in, and things like that. So we don't have customers calling tomorrow like, hey, we don't have any more. Like, you guys been out of magazine pouches for 3 weeks. Like, that's right, but we have a new product coming. And like,
yeah,
don't care. I want my mag pouch.
yeah. So how does a company like HRT find balance in that?
I'd say it's tricky, especially right now with certain world events and certain places that are on the news. A lot of our very specific color patterns have gone out of stock because we'll sell to one customer a ton of an item or all of the item that happens to be in stock. So then we're playing catch up, but we also still, I don't know if you've looked at a calendar, but Friday is Black Friday. Right now is when
Hmm.
everybody's doing their sales. So
Yep.
we're also trying to like have inventory for that. So sometimes it does mean like, hey, someone's staying late to make this, or we're going to change some hours up, or we're just going to focus on maybe we spend a whole week getting one product in stock. I think last month specifically, we did that with tourniquet pouches. It was just
Oh, okay.
make as many tourniquet pouches as you can make in a day because we just need more.
Yeah.
So then we just turn them out, and then we ran out of Maximus placards. So it's all right, emergency. We need as many Maximuses as we can, and racks will be a little bit slow this month because we just need more of one instead of more of the other.
Okay.
Plates was a tricky one. I assume probably on the law enforcement side, you've heard there's a plate manufacturer that had some issues, and we were
Yep.
one of their brands. So thankfully, the right connections have been in place that we were able to transition pretty smoothly. But we had to basically look at a ton of orders and go, we can't fulfill your product, but we can give you this instead. And thankfully, that worked out. We were able to do that pretty smoothly and have the right connections in place on hand. But there's some times where it's just, oh dear, we don't know what we're going to do about that.
Now, do you think that, and I don't know how many employees total there, but that it's because you're a small enough company, you're able to maneuver that minefield as efficiently as you have, or is it that you're so big, it's like, man, this is a wonder that we've been able to do this?
I feel like it falls into a little of a both and category. So while the company itself is large, everyone's roles kind of blend together. So if the shipping team goes, hey, we have way too much on our plate right now, can we get some help? I'm going to drop what I'm doing. Our customer service can drop what they're doing, and they can come help in warehouse.
Okay.
And then on the flip side, if I'm drowning up in the front of the building and customer service is overwhelmed, our shipping guys can go, hey, we knocked out what we need to really get done today. So what if we help with some emails or something? So the company's able to be fluid, I think, on a personal level. So the entity of HRT can take some time to make those turns, but on a personal level, the people within HRT are able to make those moves happen faster.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so now getting into, you mentioned you mentioned Black Friday is coming up this upcoming Friday. Our goal is to have this podcast go live the Tuesday after
Mm-hmm.
Black Friday, so the 28th or something like that. But then what's next for you guys after that? So you have the Christmas season and then shot shows in January. So is Christmas season just kind of a build up getting ready for shot show, or are you crazy? Are you guys crazy busy throughout the Christmas season as well?
So usually, unfortunately, we're pretty busy in the end of November, pretty much all the way through December up until we go on our vacations. Um, because of the way that Shot Show falls in between Black Friday and then obviously the beginning of 24, we're always trying to wrap up development for some new products. So with that end, we're doing a lot of development on some new products, and we're also getting prepped for what we need to do for our booth and things like that. I'll spend a lot of time in this current part of the year scheduling events and meetings with different companies and brands. Same as how Chris is doing the same for, and I'm sure you guys are doing a ton of that as well. Getting, I assume you guys are going this year.
Yeah, we'll be at Shot Show, and actually, our whole team is going to be there. So there's going to be
Oh,
this is going to be
nice.
the first year all four of us will be there.
Mm-hmm.
We've been trying to get the other two to we tried to get them to come last year, and like, come on, it'll be fun, but it just didn't work out. There were some job changes and childcare issues that the others couldn't handle at the time. But this is the year. I tell you, I was surprised because we were like, come on, it'd be so fun if all four of us would be there. And then the other two were just like, all of a sudden they like sent us screenshots like, all right, ticket spot, we're doing this. I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be so crazy. So this shot show I'm really looking forward to. Obviously seeing you
That's
guys
sweet.
and kind of all the other companies that we've had such a great relationship with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also like the little kid inside of me, like what am I going to see that's new from whoever? What new guns am
Right.
I going to see? What new gear am I going to see? Um, yeah, so
I love that part of it.
I know it's. Do you guys get a chance to walk the floor at all while you're there?
Yeah, so the way that we normally, at least for my day, usually set up some pretty aggressive like morning and afternoons, and then around lunchtime I'll usually go grab something to eat, wander around, and then usually right before the place closes, I'll go run out to some places that I want to see, because then I get some time to talk to their actual sales staff and their like
Okay.
customer service people, not just be one of the 10,000 people they're trying to talk to in a 5 minute span. So
Yeah.
I usually run out end of the day, and then usually around lunch I'll bounce and check around things a little bit. I'll probably do more of that this year than last year, just because of the marketing
Hmm.
side. Last year I was pretty heavily focused on just meeting with our retailers and prospective customers.
Awesome. You guys going to be roughly in the same location? Do you know yet?
I think it's the exact same spot. I'm pretty sure we're across from the same people. I look. So I send a booth number and information out to different people, and I send them like where we are on the map. And I'm pretty sure it's the
Okay.
exact same spot as last year, which is a good spot. I was
Yeah.
happy with it.
Yeah. You guys had a lot of foot traffic there. Those Arctis
Mm-hmm.
guys, the UK's guys that were right across from you, super awesome to deal with. I love talking to
Mm-hmm.
those guys. So
I should have
what
reached out for one of their jackets because they got some cool,
they do?
that like foldable jacket that goes into a little pocket sleeve.
Yeah. One thing I'll say, their sizing is a little like I ordered an XL sweater from them, and it's probably a large. And I
Oh,
didn't know that their sizing was a little different.
is it
So an
UK
XL,
sizing?
yeah, I think it's UK sizing.
Oh, okay.
So an
We're
XL, at
we're
least for
grass and
me,
corn fed over here.
yeah, I know. I ordered an XL, and it's a little tight on. I like Mexican food too much. Uh,
You and
so
I both.
so what's next then? Is there any product development that you can talk about that's coming out, or if not that, then what do you see as next for yourself at HRT? Like, what is your goal on a in the marketing side for HRT
Mhm.
for this upcoming year?
So as far as new products, I'm a little bit tight-lipped on some of the things, but a few that we're pretty like we're almost done with. We're done with the utility pouch came out, so I don't know if you've seen that, but it's I think there's a couple of them at the event. I know I've got one on both my belts.
Yeah, I had one
The Jaws
had
Hog
my
event.
flashlight in it.
Yeah. So I was really happy about those. There's a separate version that's going to be a little bit different dimensionally for some other equipment. And then we are working on a medical pouch that will go on any belt, but can definitely go on ours. I can't give any details on it, but there's a couple things like that because the first line series has done, which our belt and pouches has done really well,
Okay.
and that came out I think November of last year, and it's
Yeah.
done great. And my belt, my personal one, is from like August,
Oh, okay.
and during the summer, spring, summer, and into fall, I usually shoot at least once a week, and so it's getting a lot of workouts and sitting in a hot black trunk when it's not being
Yeah.
used, and it's held up really well. So that line's done super great. And I think we'll have some more things there, and then we're going to modernize and revamp a couple other
Cool.
products that we already have. So I don't know if those will be at shot, just
Yeah,
how
yeah.
timing goes in manufacturing, but we'll see what we can have there. And
Awesome.
then my end, I got a lot to learn because I'm not a marketing guy,
Yeah.
but I'm a people guy. That goes in my favor because I like talking to people, I like working with people, I enjoy that interaction. So it'll be doing a lot of that, but a little bit more for the HRT side, and then obviously we want to continue to grow our views and our traffic. So I'll probably be doing more interviews like this and some more um, probably some YouTube videos, things like that. So I'll have to
Yeah.
reach out for some pointers, um, and then hopefully go into a couple more classes. This I feel like the last year has been pretty rough on class side for me. I've only gotten out to one, well,
Mm.
until the Jaws Hog one. Years prior, so Ohio is now a concealed carry, constitutional concealed carry state. And prior to that, I worked as an instructor with another dude who's super awesome locally who taught a lot of classes. So every other week we were running a concealed handgun class or a licensing class. And so I got to shoot a ton and do a lot of extra work there. So I've been missing that, and that'll be nice doing that more for on the HRT side, getting to go to things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that Jawless Hog training, that was the first class I've attended, outside of any law enforcement training I went through. That's the first class I've attended in probably 2 or 3 years. And it was the one thing that I kept coming back to, like, man, those guys are just so personable, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't come across as arrogant. Like, they come across as people that actually they know they've walked the walk and talked the talk for a long time.
Right.
um Man, I had another question and I can't remember what it was. I hate even that. I even have a notepad here that I was supposed to be writing down thoughts, but this has just been it's been fun getting to know you and getting to know kind of a little bit behind the scene, a peek behind the curtain at HRT.
Mm-hmm.
You got to bug Gene, and I'd love to get Gene on and just have him tell the Jawless Hog story and kind of where that name came from. And
I would love
that
to know
was
as well.
oh, you weren't there. They talked about where the Jawless Hog name came from at that training.
I don't know. So I was only there for the second day.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it was the first day they talked about it.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll
I
when
don't
we
think I've
when
heard
we
that.
end this, we'll stick around in the green room and I'll tell you where the name came from.
Okay.
Well, awesome, man. I So where can people find more information as we wrap this up? Where can people find more information about you individually? Are you on any social media?
Mm-hmm. I have a Instagram page. It's HRT Daniel.
Okay.
So not too hard to find. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Um, I have been learning about posting, so don't expect super awesomeness. But I just don't think to post things when I go to the range. Like I'm there to train. I don't think about getting a camera
Yeah.
out. So usually it's more on the back end, like uh, maintenance repairs or something I'm building. But hey, if there's some content there, and you can obviously people can shoot me a message on there and chat about stuff. And then obviously HRT has a large active page there as well.
Awesome. And then obviously HRT Tactical Gear.com.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, well, cool, Daniel. Hey, man, I appreciate you taking some time to chat with us. And 45 minutes went by pretty fast. It seems like.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me be on.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll catch you next time.